So from election integrity to FBI integrity, and it's a sad state. We've got more documents from the Strzok documents that we've been getting intermittently from the FBI and the Justice Department. Remember, they have thousands of documents. They were releasing them to us over only 500 pages. Well, this is, forget about everything else, what was in the documents. I want to remind you about the outrageous way the FBI and Justice Department are handling these documents. They got 13,000 documents, and they're telling us they can only process 500 documents a month, which would, I haven't done the calculations recently, but essentially push out the final release of documents till after the year, till late 2021. So we'll be fighting about these documents in the next administration, even though the number of documents is so small that they could have been released months ago. Why slow roll the release of records? Because they know what's in them. They know that when you've got Lisa Page and Peter Strzok communicating, you got problems given the corruption they were involved in the Hillary Clinton email investigation, the wiring of that, and of course the insurance policy that was the Russiagate investigation. What's really interesting about these documents is that they confirm, this shows you how corrupt the FBI investigation, Justice Department investigation was into Hillary Clinton. Strzok and Page were unhappy with the way it was being run. They weren't sociopaths. They had the basics down as to what needs to be done. They saw the general counsel and top lawyers for the FBI and Justice Department kowtowing to the Clinton gang lawyers. And they were furious about it. We get to, I need to skip forward here. In exchange, in a 2016 email exchange in July, this is after Clinton got off, Strzok and his boss, Bill Priestep, who has been provided testimony under oath in writing to Judicial Watch, are critical of how deferential the DOJ was being to Clinton's legal team. In the exchange, an associate at the law firm representing Clinton's aides asked DOJ officials in the National Security Division if they could schedule a meeting the following week. An unidentified NSD official, National Security Division officials, writes, "It is my understanding that Deputy Assistant Attorney General George Toscas may have called over the Jim, presumably FBI Director Jim Baker, and Tricia, who was the FBI Office General Counsel lawyer Tricia Anderson, recording some high-level participation for at least the first few such calls." Why on earth would they have to participate? You are perfectly competent to speak to the legal obligations and FBI policy procedures. We should not be treating opposing counsel this way. We would not in any other case. That's Strzok. That's Strzok complaining about them bringing in top-level FBI officials who have no business participating in these calls to kowtow to the Clinton gang lawyers. And we've had other documents that have shown that. We have other documents that show here that the Justice Department was editing 302s. What are 302s? Those are the narrative reports created by FBI agents of interviews. Infamously, there was an edit argument over a particular issue with the Flynn 302. Remember that? Where the 302 wasn't finalized or had been edited significantly months after the initial interview took place, which suggested that Flynn actually hadn't lied. DOJ is editing 302s, which is highly unusual in my view. What else is here? Oh, Strzok and Page were involved in the opening of Crossfire Hurricane, the anti-Trump spy operation. Turns out that was conducted illegally. Now, the IG had suggested that they were involved in opening it somehow. These documents confirm that in further details. They're writing up the document. There's this electronic communication that was written up to justify the spy operation against the Trump campaign. It's called an electronic communication. The documents detail that Page and Strzok were involved in running it. or writing the material. Now, outrageously, we've yet to see that electronic communication. The most significant spy operation in American history, we don't know how it was opened. And even more troublingly, the IG says they could find, quote, no evidence it was opened for nefarious purposes or improper purposes or there was anything improper in opening it. Even though the Attorney General of the United States and John Durham, the U.S. Attorney from Connecticut, who's allegedly investigating this, has suggested that the IG's conclusion was wrong there. Well, if there's that dispute, why isn't this document being released? We've sued for it, we've asked for it, we can't get it. This is another example of the president's need to intervene to release basic information about the outrageous spy abuses against him. Anything involving Lisa Page and Peter Strzok, especially on Russiagate, given their emails about having insurance policies and knowing there was never anything there. They all knew there was never anything there. This was all concocted. That's what the evidence shows. There was no good faith-based reason to open up a spy operation against a candidate for president of the United States. Just think of the bar of credibility in common sense terms you would have to meet any competent official to justify doing that. Do you think they had that? Of course they didn't. I don't care what the IG says. The IG says, we found they dotted every I and crossed every T, so therefore they can do that. You know, there's a famous, it's not famous, but there's an old cartoon that I've always liked. And there's a clown that's walking around town, evidently, in the cartoon with a giant mallet bashing people on the head. And they're all lying around in the street. And the cop is looking at a document and he says, well, my gosh, he does have a license to do that. That's the IG's approach to Russiagate. They got all the documents right, so therefore nothing bad happened. Despite all the evidence something bad happened. That's both direct and circumstantial. And so we've got documents showing Lisa Page and Peter Strzok's direct involvement in the opening of the most dangerous counterintelligence investigation in American history in terms of its threat to our constitutional republic, which in my view is ongoing. Oh, what else is interesting here is a curious email about Seth Rich. Now, Seth Rich was a DNC staffer who was murdered here in Washington, D.C., and the murder remains unsolved. Now, there are those who question how and why he was murdered and what happened there, and you can just imagine there are people who've alleged he was involved in the WikiLeaks leaks or the DNC hacking. I don't know if any of that's true. I do know that when a political person like Seth Rich is murdered, politics intervenes in the investigation of his death. So we've tried to do some FOIA work there. We haven't gotten anywhere because death investigation is still open. But the FBI, I think, had told us they had no documents. Well, lo and behold, out of this Lisa Page, Peter Strzok document, there's references to Seth Rich. Let's see what it says here. There is there's a media inquiry about, so an official whose name they redact writes, various news outlets are reporting today that Julian Assange suggested during a recent overseas interview that DNC staffer Seth Rich was a WikiLeaks source and may have been killed because he leaked the DNC emails to his organization, and that WikiLeaks is offering $20,000 for information regarding Seth Rich's death last month. Based on this news, we anticipate additional press coverage on this matter. I hear that you are in class today. However, when you have a moment, can you please give me a call to discuss what involvement the Bureau has in the investigation? A Washington field office agent responds, I'm aware of this reporting from earlier this week, but not any specific involvement in any related case. I don't know what that means. I'm reading it to mean we're not involved, but it reads oddly. So if I had received that email, I would have written back, what do you mean? Is it yes or no? An unidentified agent then writes to both Maffa, who is an FBI guy, and Strzok, just FYSA for your situational awareness. I squashed this with redacted, so there's a blank. Strzok then forwards that email chain to the page. So that's curious. You know, it looks like they squashed it maybe with a media outlet, I don't know. But they're talking about Rich here. They suggest that the FBI isn't doing much, if anything, on it. But they squashed an inquiry, which is a substantial issue. I mean, Assange, you know, I don't know whether he was telling the truth there, but, you know, certainly that would be enough. If, you know, it would have been enough for the FBI to investigate Donald Trump, but not enough for the FBI to launch an investigation into the Seth Rich murder. That's what that shows. Isn't it curious what they decide to investigate and what basis they base that decision on? Trump, they got garbage rumors. They start spying on him and other innocent Americans, targeting Manafort, targeting General Flynn. Here you've got someone publicly suggesting that Rich was murdered for somehow being involved in the DNC leaks. And the FBI, their response is, how do we quash that? Meaning we're not doing anything. And that's the most charitable reading of this. So that's interesting. Don't you love Judicial Watch? Because I'm reading this and I'm just fascinated by it. Aren't you fascinated by it? It raises questions about substantial issues, these documents, that the general media has zero interest in pursuing. Our government agencies don't want to talk about. Congress doesn't want to do anything about it. And we're just doing our due diligence, getting basic information out, and finding really startling information about matters of national importance. And we do this thanks to your support. We are we have millions of followers on social media, I know that. But we also have hundreds of thousands of people who write us checks, give us money, donate online. We're one of the most widely supported conservative organizations, government watchdog groups in the country. We are probably the biggest watchdog group in the world. We're not just a group, we're a movement. And I encourage you to join our movement, support Judicial Watch, in the least learn about what we're doing, share our educational materials. Our goal is to educate you, the American public, about what your government's up to, because they're not going to do it voluntarily. The media isn't going to do it. You can trust Judicial Watch. I want you to have a wonderful week, and I'll see you next time here on the Judicial Watch Weekly Update.
Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel to catch all the latest news from Judicial Watch.